Get ready because a new Apple event is coming. Well, maybe not like an event, but there's definitely going to be a lot of products announced very, very soon. Like if you're watching this on Sunday when I release this video, these products might actually already be out, which is kind of crazy. So what am I talking about here? Well, Mark Gurman, who is a reliable Apple analyst and reporter, kind of like leaks information from the company. And I talk about his reports all the time. I find them to be one of the most accurate out there. And he just released like a bombshell newsletter basically talking about all the Apple products that are going to be released and announced in October. And he says that because some of these products are minimal updates, that Apple isn't going to hold an event for them, but in fact is actually just going to drop a press release. And he says that these products are going to be coming in a matter of days. So if you're watching this on Sunday, it's probably most likely that Apple will issue a press release for these maybe tomorrow or on Tuesday, and we'll finally get to see some of these new products. But what products is Apple going to announce, I should say? What products is Apple going to announce, right? So this one for October, depending on how you look at it, could end up to be good or bad, depending on what products you're excited for. Because October is apparently going to be very iPad focused. So the number one product that we can expect to be released via press release is a new version of the iPad Pro. Now, there's been a lot of talk about iPadOS 16.1. Apple actually delayed iPadOS 16 until October because they had to do a lot of work with it. Basically, people were not happy with the way that Stage Manager was working on iPadOS, and Apple had to take a step back, kind of reiterate how they did Stage Manager, and they actually removed some features like support for the external display, at least for now, and they brought support for it for older iPads. So obviously when the new iPad Pro launched, Stage Manager was gonna probably be one of like the hallmark features to introduce with this new iPad, because it does kind of change the way that you might potentially use your iPad, even though that so far a lot of people, including myself, kind of find it pretty flawed right now. But anyway, it is a stepping stone into potentially what multitasking could eventually look like across a whole range of iPads. So with this new iPad Pro, Stage Manager is probably going to be front and center as a new feature. But I think the main update for this iPad Pro, and Gurman seems to indicate this as well, is that it's basically just going to be a spec bump. And that's why it's going to be a press release. There's not really a lot new here. And the main upgrade for this iPad Pro is just going to be an M2 chip. Now, Gurman himself says this is nothing to scoff at because the M2 chip over the M1 in the current iPad Pro is going to be a 20% increase in performance. And for a thin and light tablet, getting a 20% increase in performance, getting basically full Mac power in a tablet is still insane. Like, it was insane when they did it with the M1. It's going to be even more insane possibly when they do it with the M2 chip. But there's also the question of, what is all this power really good for? People are still struggling to find uses that can max out the M1 chip in the iPad Pro with the 16 gigabytes of memory on the higher tier storage configurations. And I'm also wondering, as Apple plans to drop this new M2 iPad Pro update, are they even going to make the iPad specs even crazier? Because currently the M2 chip can be maxed out with 24 gigabytes of memory. So if you order like a max storage iPad Pro, is there like a chance that that tablet could ship with like 24 gigabytes of memory? And that's kind of like insane to think about in a way. But anyway, new iPad Pros are coming. They're going to have more power. It's still going to be mini LED on the 12.9 inch apparently, and not on the 11 inch. If they brought mini LED to the 11 inch somehow, even though it's not rumored, I feel like this would be a more substantial update because I really want that smaller size iPad Pro to get that display. It's a really nice display. And I'm hoping with the 12.9 inch iPad Pro, maybe they brought some improvements over to the mini LED ProMotion display, kind of like they did with the 14 inch MacBook Pro. I found that that version of their mini LED technology was a little bit more fine-tuned. So there's probably going to be a few upgrades like that as well. There were rumors earlier that maybe Apple would bring MagSafe wireless charging. I still don't know if that's actually going to happen. It doesn't seem to be as widely rumored anymore. And then possibly another big change for the iPad Pro. It would kind of be minor, but in a way, a nice quality of life update is there were rumors that Apple, again, could potentially be moving where the Face ID camera is on the iPad Pro to a landscape orientation rather than a portrait orientation. You know, the iPad Pro is pretty big, right? Like most people use it in landscape, especially if you're using multitasking and if you prop it down on a keyboard. So it's kind of just a better placement for the camera based on how people actually use their iPads. So maybe smaller changes like that, but no major changes to the design. It's still going to look exactly or mostly the same as the 2018 iPad Pro. So basically, we can just expect an M2 spec bump, and I don't know, maybe they'll throw in like a new color. But other than that, it's like, okay, realistically, using this between an M1 iPad Pro and to this M2 iPad Pro is virtually going to be the same experience. It's going to get a power boost, but how good is that power boost really going to be when people don't even feel like they're taking full advantage of the M1 chip? Now, yeah, I sound a little bit down on the iPad Pro because it's a minor spec bump. It's not a big update year. But that doesn't mean there isn't a big update coming to a certain iPad, and that would be the regular iPad. Yeah, we talked about this a lot on the channel, and the rumors as we go along just get more and more exciting. So initially, when we first talked about the entry-level iPad, we talked about this potentially being an iPad that was going to get the flat-sided design like the iPad Pro, but still have big top and bottom bezels so it could fit in a home button with Touch ID. Well, it looks like that's been shaken up a bit too, because now apparently this iPad is basically rumored to get almost the same exact design as the iPad Air. And that includes not having a home button, that includes the thinner borders around the display. And what this really looks like is just a cheaper version of the iPad Air. And it just looks, based on some of these rumors, like just a full modern iPad in the entry-level iPad, which always had that older design. And a big reason why Apple is adopting this new design, or I guess the reason why, is because they are bringing the USB-C port over to this iPad Pro. And because they're bringing USB-C over, they had to basically just give it the new design, because like if they wanted to use the second generation Apple Pencil, which they should do, right? Like you don't want to make a new USB-C Apple Pencil for this thing. They have to be able to pair it and charge it. And currently the first generation Apple Pencil that works with that cheaper iPad is connected via Lightning through the Lightning port in the bottom. So they had to bring the magnetic charging on the top. They had to make the iPad flat, and they had to support the second generation Apple Pencil. Now, because they're doing all this work, it also means that Apple's going to have to move the smart connector on the back of the iPad, and that is a huge plus, because that means that this entry-level iPad, which normally retails for $329, I don't know if they'll keep that price, we'll talk about that in a second, but it means that it's going to work with all the iPad Air and all the iPad Pro accessories, and that is really, really cool, because just think about it. You could potentially go in and buy around a $300 iPad. It's going to look pretty modern. It's probably going to have, not Face ID, but it's probably going to have Touch ID in the power button, just like the iPad Air. And then you could go and buy like the $300 Magic Keyboard. And I know it's like a $600 setup, but yeah, a $600 setup with the new iPad design, with the Magic Keyboard, with the trackpad. That's probably going to be one of the best values when it comes to personal computing. And as not exciting as the iPad Pro is, because it's such a lackluster upgrade, this is going to be one of the biggest upgrades to the entry-level iPad that we have ever seen. So that is really exciting. Apple's also probably going to give this iPad a spec bump as well. So it's probably going to use the A14 chip. And it's kind of funny because if you think of the older iPad Air before the M1 chip, it was using an A14 chip. So it kind of sounds like Apple's maybe recycling that whole product in a way. And it's going to be interesting to see where they skimp out in specs on this, because I assume it's still going to start with 64 gigabytes of storage. That's what the current base model iPad starts at, and that's what the iPad Air starts at. So I'm kind of like wondering, where is Apple going to cut cost here? Because the current M1 iPad Air retails for $600. And this current iPad, the one that we have now, retails for $329. I don't think Apple is going to be able to keep this at $329. I think the price is just too good to be true. It's going to cannibalize the iPad Air. No one's going to buy it. So I think realistically, we can probably expect a price increase on this base model iPad for an overall better product. Now, I think that price increase is going to be probably to $400. I think it'll retail at $400 because then you have the $400 regular iPad, the $500 iPad mini, and then the $600 iPad Air. I feel like that makes the most sense. But now that I'm thinking about the mini at that $500 price point, does that really make sense? Probably not, but I guess that's just the way that Apple's going to do it. Or maybe they do like a product shift. Like maybe they put the mini at $400 and then this iPad at $500, but I don't think so. I feel like that's just too close to the regular iPad Air. It's almost like, okay, why does this product exist? But yeah, big updates are coming to the regular iPad. And if like 70% of this turns out to be true, This is going to be such an easy recommendation to make based on price. I really hope it is still $400 or lower. That would be the sweet spot for this product. And it's such an easy recommendation to make. That is gonna sell like crazy. What about Macs? Because I think everyone watching this is very excited about Macs. I know I am. And I am really excited for the new M2 Mac Mini, especially. But it seems like Gurman is saying that these M2 Macs won't be in this initial press release. And he expects that maybe to be at the later end of October for an announcement, or maybe even into early November. But when that does happen, that would be a press release announcement of the new 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro with the new M2 Pro and M2 Max chip, and then also a updated version of the M2 Mac Mini with just a regular M2 chip, but then a second higher end variant on top of that that will go all the way up to an M2 Pro chip. Now, I might disagree with Gurman here, which is rare for me to do for a second, because I always expected Apple to hold an event for these Macs. The reason I say that is even though these are basically going to be spec bumps, like don't expect any new design with the 14 or 16-inch MacBook Pro or any major hardware upgrades there, like they're already pretty advanced machines, the only thing that's really going to change them is the chips. The only reason I would say that Apple would hold an event is because they're going to be introducing the M2 Pro and the M2 Max chip. And for Apple Silicon, that is a big deal. These are probably potentially going to be pretty powerful chips. And I feel like Apple wants to talk about them and kind of flex their muscle a little bit, right? And also, there's that Mac Pro, that M2 Mac Pro that Apple still has to release to complete the transition. Apple gave us a 2-year time frame, and this November would mark the end of that 2-year time frame. So if they didn't complete the 2-year transition in 2 years, I kind of feel like it's a bad look. So maybe they will either announce that new Mac Pro, or like Apple has done in the past, maybe they'll give us a sneak preview and then set a release date for next year. So if Apple is ready to show off the Mac Pro, I'm still holding out for some sort of November event, like a November Mac event, show off the new M2 Pro chip, the new M2 Max chip, and then the like M2 Ultra and M2 Extreme in the Mac Pro. So that's what I'm personally counting on with these Macs if they're ready to show off the Mac Pro. But yeah, basically this is the secret Apple October news drop. Like they're gonna drop these products via a press release. There's not gonna be an event. You're just gonna wake up one day and you're gonna see that these new products are announced. I expect it to be this week. So I would say it would be Tuesday, October 18th. That is the date that I'm guessing, but hey, it could even be tomorrow on the 17th. It'd be interesting if you're watching this on Monday and you're like, wait, they're already here. So yeah, it's gonna be an exciting time. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you like this video, make sure you give me a like. And yeah, I'll see you all pretty soon when those products drop. Take care, everyone.